Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Sarah Clark. I'm Director of Policy at the Seattle Chamber. We're excited today to bring you our inaugural Industry Insights panel. Each quarter, we will spotlight a different regional industry and its impact on the local economy. Today, we're bringing together and recording with 3 leaders in the life sciences industry to discuss successes, innovations, new technology, and opportunities for collaboration. The life sciences industry plays a significant role in Seattle's regional economy, driving innovation and advancing research that has a global impact. With leading institutions and companies focused on biotechnology, cancer research, neuroscience, and more, our region is a center for groundbreaking advancements. This industry not only attracts and supports local jobs, but also fosters collaboration across research, healthcare, and technology sectors. Today, we're joined by Alison Fitch, Director of Scientific Operations and Strategy at the Cancer Immunology and Cell Therapy Thematic Research Center with Bristol Myers Squibb. We're also joined with Hilary Hehman, Vice President of Business Development with Fred Hutchinson Cancer Center, and Kathy Richmond, Vice President of Director, Frontiers Group and Office of Science and Innovation with the Allen Institute. They will share their perspectives on the latest advancements and opportunities in the life sciences field. To start our discussion, let's dive straight into some introductions. Could each of you briefly share a bit about yourself, your organization, and how you contribute to the life sciences ecosystem here in Seattle? And Hilary, why don't we start with you?
Great. Thanks so much, Sarah. As we said, my name is Hilary Hehman, Vice President of Business Development at Fred Hutch. In that position, I am fortunate and have a great time running the intellectual property management group at Fred Hutch. So we pay attention to all the assets that are created, the innovation that comes out of our faculty, and try to create new companies to take that innovation from the laboratories at Fred Hutch into the clinic where they can, return on our mission and benefit patients. I've been at Fred Hutch 8 years. The team that I lead has been very successful with the support of the organization over the last 8 years. Commercialization, innovation, translation is critical, as I said, to returning or acting on our mission. And we've spun out 25 plus companies over the last 8 years, and we try to keep those in Seattle as to the extent possible to create jobs. As we said, that's a large part of our mission as well, is to create an ecosystem of innovation in Seattle. I would hope people know Fred Hutch as a preeminent cancer center, recently integrated with the University of Washington and Seattle Children's to take over the Seattle Cancer Care Alliance and bring that all under one umbrella organization called Fred Hutch Cancer Center. So now we are a fully operational clinical cancer research center. So that's me.
Thanks, Hilary. Kathy.
Wonderful and wonderful to be here. Thank you. Kathy Richmond, Executive Vice President here at the Allen Institute. I've been here for a little over a decade, but I've been in scientific research for quite a bit longer than that. I'm happy to have a PhD and MBA and really bring all those tools to bear because it's an exciting time to be in biology and the life sciences. As you may know, the Allen Institute is a rather young organization. It started about 20 years ago with a focus on finding life science problems at scale so that team science could be used, and really embracing the open science approach so that you can lift all boats and hopefully get to finding some key breakthroughs faster. So we do foundational data sets and a variety of platforms and tools, all to try and catalyze work within the research community. Eager to talk today because as is the title in my role, we also look to see about innovation and how we can have the most impact, both globally but also regionally, and working together with partners and both tech and other, to try and make some really significant movements in these fields.
Great. And Alison.
Thanks you so much, Sarah. And I want to say how much I appreciate the Seattle Metropolitan Chamber highlighting this important industry for the city. And it's an honor to be here alongside leaders from two of Seattle's highly esteemed life science institutions. I'm Alison Fitch. As Sarah mentioned, I'm Director of Seattle Site Strategy and Operations for Bristol Myers Squibb. And I also have the privilege to lead our STEM engagement strategy for Washington. I've been in the Seattle area since 2007 when I came to join a small biotech. Sort of as an aside, that's one of the most numerous types of life science organizations in the area. And then I joined BMS by way of the Celgene acquisition in 2016. And similar to Kathy, I come to this job with a background, a bachelor's in science, and then an MBA as well. BMS, as I mentioned, is the company that I work for. It's a global biopharmaceutical company with approximately 750 staff in our 3 Seattle facilities. And we have 1,250 when we include our colleagues in the manufacturing organization in Bothell. In the region, we're focused on the development of cell therapies to treat cancer and other serious diseases, which I'm excited to talk a little bit more about today. BMS has had a presence in Seattle since 2014 through our origin companies. So that's Celgene Corporation that I mentioned, and also Juno Therapeutics. Because of this and our relative size, we've had the fortune to have longstanding engagement with the local life science ecosystem. That includes, for example, multiple partnerships with the Fred Hutch in both foundational research, translational biomarker studies, and clinical trials. Our leaders even visited the Hutch recently, I think, with Hilary to discuss continued collaboration just this past month. So finally, I also wanted to highlight that we're active in partners with our local trade organization, Life Science Washington. Sort of as an example, Terry Foy, our BMS Seattle site lead, is an active member of that board. And we are excited to continue and deepen those engagements in the ecosystem.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. Really excited to have this conversation with you all. So let's jump right into it. Alison, why don't we start with you for this first question? What are some of the most exciting opportunities or innovations currently happening at your organization?
Yeah, thanks so much, Sarah. I think the thing that really excites me most, all share the theme of increasing the number of patients accessing treatments with the potential to really address serious diseases in a transformative way. And I'm going to highlight 3 examples. So I'll start with our born in Seattle therapy, Breyanzi, which Fred Hutch was a key partner in developing that therapy. That's been approved in 2 additional oncology indications this year, as well as having an expanded manufacturing process in its first approved indication of diffuse large cell B-cell lymphoma. With this and other new approvals, as well as clinical trials with new cell therapies, we now have treated over 8,700 patients with a BMS cell therapy. One of those new cell therapies I'll touch on next is called CD19 NEX-T. That has a phase 1 which is an early stage trial, readout expected for severe refractory lupus this year. We believe it has the potential for meaningful benefit across other serious autoimmune indications like multiple sclerosis as well. And then finally, I wanted to touch on some of the work that we're doing beyond in Seattle in BMS. And we are really excited about significant potential in other areas. So that includes our expanded neuroscience pipeline, which we've really expanded recently in the last year. So in this fall, BMS expects a decision on KarXT, which is an antipsychotic. And that has the potential to become the first novel therapy for patients in schizophrenia in decades. KarXT could transform the lives of millions of people who currently have limited or no therapeutic options in this disease. And additionally, we're really excited about this therapeutic because it has the potential in other indications. It's currently being studied as well for example, in the treatment of Alzheimer's disease psychosis. So we're really excited about these other areas as well as our homegrown and expanding areas in cell therapy.
That's all of that sounds really exciting. I'd love to hear from our other panelists. Hilary, would you like to share some exciting opportunities or innovations happening at your organization?
Sure, where do I start? My whole job is finding new innovations at Fred Hutch. That's my reason for being. But to highlight a few things that are going on at the moment, part of our strategic vision at Fred Hutch is to really lean into precision medicine as a way to harness the patient's own genetics and immune system to really tailor therapies to directly target specific cancers that that really make the patient's own genetics the vehicle through which we can eliminate cancers. So we are actually planning right now a new research building that will house a precision medicine institute. So we're very excited about that program, and we have a fantastic leader, Dr. Pete Nelson, who is building the strategy for that as we speak. So that's a huge endeavor that we're undertaking as part of our strategic plan. We've also recruited a number of really stellar faculty members, Dr. Larry Fong, Dr. Sarah Hurwitz, who are also now leaning into the infrastructure that we have available through the Bezos Clinic to host partnered clinical trials. So they are building their vision for how we partner with BMS. Perhaps, Alison, this is what we've been discussing, right? How we utilize our expertise in CAR T therapy and specialized clinical trials that, the CAR T trials and cell therapy trials are very different than trials for small molecules and whatnot. They would take different skill sets, different nursing approaches. I mean, it's a whole different ball of wax, if you will. So Sarah and Larry are thinking about, how we really take what we have from an infrastructure standpoint and make it the catalyst for partnerships, trials that really bring the innovation to the patient where it belongs. So, but as I said, I mean, they're every day there's something new. Literally.
That's the exciting thing about
It
science.
is.
Yeah.
It is.
Kathy.
I love hearing all that's been talked about currently, and I'll add I'll try and it's hard to pick a favorite child. There's so much going on, and it's really an exciting time. So as I mentioned, we focus on foundational research, and a lot of what we do focuses on creating these open, large data sets to really lift all boats in the community. And so we're continuing in that vein, both in neuroscience, but also in immunology, cell science, and synthetic biology. And this is through a variety of partnerships as well as our own efforts and team science approach. So it really runs the gamut as to the consortia, and it takes a village to get some of these big problems and big approaches done. But we really aim to have data sets that are complete, accurate, and permanent. And right now, that's the currency to really feed into a lot of the modeling and AI and machine learning approaches that are being done. So can't think of a more exciting time to see how that can be used and leveraged not only by us, but by others. And so that takes the form of genetic tools now that we've really done atlases to see what all the cell types are, to really get precise about what cells specifically are vulnerable or could be resistant. And that opens the door in all fields. But it also goes farther, looking at the immune system holistically and seeing again more in a more precise way what's going on, so that upstream you can get those early profiles or their signatures way before disease is present. And this feeds into all the work going on in the region. We're really a powerhouse in the Pacific Northwest, I think, for these kinds of questions and approaches. And so the last thing I guess I would say is cell programming. we recently started a partnership with the University of Washington as well as the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, a $70 million partnership to go deeper in synthetic biology, to try and learn more about the programming at a cellular level, to see how that can downstream apply in humans and perhaps provide, again, an early sensor to maybe right cells when they're going off track, or at least a report if things are going off track. And so it's really looking downstream and around the corner of where science can go and where we can turn inspiration to actual outcomes. So exciting time, and hard to just pick a couple stories.
Yeah. Well, why don't we move on to our next question? So how is AI and machine learning being integrated into your work? Can you share examples of how these technologies are driving advancements in your field? And Alison, do you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks again, Sarah. So I really believe that BMS is a leader in this field, in the industry. And I think I say this because within months of the launch of ChatGPT in late 2022, our IT organization empowered the whole organization with a BMS only version of that tool, to sort of enable a kind of sandbox for our staff to play in and to test ways to leverage AI to transform the way they do their work. This has recently been expanded to the creation of a whole storefront so that staff can access all of BMS's AI capabilities and also deposit their own documents, to allow AI tools to sort of mine their personal information and tools in advanced AI. So this enablement, though, I think has gone hand in hand with training and clarifying staff accountability. So we maintain a core guiding principle that includes accountability, safety, transparency, and privacy. And we really believe and lead with an approach where a human is always responsible for reviewing the inputs and the outputs from AI. Beyond early workflow experimentation with the AI, I'll also touch on how we've been using the sort of earlier phase, this in the earlier phases of drug development. We leverage generative AI and machine learning tools to shorten optimization times of potential drug candidates and drive the highest quality molecules early in the development pipeline, so we have to do less experimentation. Notably, we're deploying this technology in our protein degradation space, which is a long-standing area of expertise for Bristol Myers Squibb. And it builds on our legacy in that space. But the intent is also to move that technology into larger and more complex new drug candidates like protein therapeutics, and then also, of course, cell therapies. And I just lastly want to note that Greg Myers, who's our EVP and Chief Digital and Technology Officer, is an exceptional communicator in both the kind of considerations and opportunity for AI in drug development. He actually recently, just this past, I guess it would be Tuesday, was actually interviewed on a podcast called Raising Health about AI in the healthcare space. So if our audience is interested in digging a little deeper into this topic, I highly recommend giving that a listen.
Thank you. Kathy?
Wonderful topic, wonderful question. It may be in part because of what we do, but it also may be in part of where our roots are. We've been really excited to see the integration of AI and machine learning, given the complexity and the scale of data that is swamping the research community. It's a bit of a challenge to look across scales, to look across time, to look across development, to really collect all that and squeeze out of that meaningful knowledge. And so we use AI and machine learning and computer vision to really understand the imaging that we're doing, to understand the data sets, to really make the most out of the noise and get the signals out, whether it be in brain tissue or cells or the immune system. There's just, as many can attest to, the flavors of different types of data keep growing. And each one adds something to understanding biology. And so you don't want to lose any of that, but what's the best way to integrate and surface those nuggets? And so that's something that our team of over 1,000 are working on. And we're doing it with the best and brightest. I have to say the Pacific Northwest in this region is not lacking for that skill set. And it's really exciting to be able to really dig deep and surface some of those insights. I will say that one of the things that we're finding AI is most useful in, because it can be highly it can be highly inspirational, but it can also has to maybe fulfill some of the promise it has. Is it's freeing us up from some of the mechanics so that we can spend the time with creativity and with innovation, and not maybe and have things in some ways more automated, or at least to dive into some areas that really leans into its strengths, whether it's be pattern recognition or scale. But it's something that again has the potential to really shorten the time from breakthrough to bedside. But it's right now it's just helping day to day in how we manage this great amount of data.
I imagine that could be extremely helpful in the data area. So, Hilary, anything you'd like to add?
Well, I mean, very similar to, how BMS and Alan are looking at AI as a tool to really accelerate discovery. That's how we look at it. If you have the large data set that you can prosecute, a target and figure out, what drug is going to be most active and most effective, and do that cyclically, exponentially faster than you can do it as, in a lab with a pair of hands and a pipette. If we can get to drug candidates quicker and actually see what fails quicker, which is, as everybody knows, is just as important to know what doesn't work. AI is a huge tool in that drug discovery cycle. So we use it, for the drug discovery. We use it to, improve our imaging capabilities. So if we have 1,000 images that we can run through an AI and make sure that, we can quickly identify cancers, non-cancers, and actually have better diagnostics. That's a fantastic AI reliant kind of process. So, we're using it to improve efficiency, but I will say, kind of to Kathy's earlier point, we have to make sure that the data sets are accessible and clean. We partner with our technology neighbors, Amazon and Microsoft. We definitely leverage the fact that they are literally in our backyard to make sure that our data are complete and accessible, which is the most important thing. And also are thinking about now, we as Fred Hutch are collecting data. Alan has data. Our colleagues on the East Coast have their own data. How do we then marshal that and find a way that we can sort of be more collective and federated, I guess, about the data that feed into any AI programs we have? Because if we could increase that scale of access and kind of all, as you said, get in the same sandbox, Alison, with the data, recognizing, that we've de-identified and all of the caveats that go along with that. If we just have access to more data, the innovation will exponentially increase. So we're thinking about that at Fred Hutch. How do we make that happen?
That's such a great point, Hilary. That
Well, exciting.
sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. AI, the more information it has, the more accurate it is. And so
Right.
I could imagine how that could be incredibly helpful. Okay, well, why don't we move on to our next question? So what incentives are you implementing to improve diversity, equity, inclusion, and access within your organizations? How are you working to make life sciences more accessible to underrepresented communities? And how do you think this will impact the industry? Kathy, do you want to start this time?
Happy to. And this has a lot of meat on the bone, and so I'm gonna probably hit a lot of the headlines, but happy to dive in on specifics. When we think of this, obviously there's inside our walls, there's outside our walls, but there's also in research itself. And so I'll just give headlines maybe to each one of those buckets, and happy to chime in as the conversation may evolve. So inside our organization, we we really believe the best science is going to have when the most diverse viewpoints can come together so that we aren't necessarily sitting in a silo. And we really have a full view of the landscape and the ramifications or the different ways of thinking about biology. And so we are eager to bring in a diverse team that feels safe, that feels respected, that feels inclusive, that whose voices are heard. We have a number of ways we do that, both by taking on J-1 visas to then expand our pool of who we can bring in, but also even in our programs, whether it be interns or postbacks or visiting residencies. Really making sure that thread is carried throughout. That in fact, for example, our postbacks, that year in between you get your bachelor's, and you possibly go on for advanced training. Not all undergraduate campuses have access to research facilities. So how can those get that access, work in a lab, get that training, and that in between year when perhaps you take on the next step in your journey. And it's been really helpful to have those cohorts come in and provoke conversations. And again, feed into the larger STEM community that we also reach out through our education and outreach, through sharing our open data for undergrads and high schoolers so that they can actually work on real research data and learn some of these skills and work with the teachers in the community. So there's multi-prongs that we do in that regard. I'll just want to say one last thing. How research is being done is also on our radar. I know it's a well-known phenomenon that a lot of the research is being done on cell lines or on studies that maybe are rather homogeneous. They don't really represent the diversity of the U.S., much less the world. And so how can that be captured? And there's a number of ways we're doing that. We are looking at both how samples can be collected through our Immunology Institute, so you can better get quality samples collected in rural areas. And we have some techniques that have allowed for immunology profiles to be done reproducibly and well to, again, better bring the samples in, but also the reagents themselves. The Allen Institute for Cell Science distributes dozens of cell lines, and we're diversifying them with partners that we'll be announcing soon to really be more representative of the diversity, ancestral diversity in the world and in the community we live in. So again, many stories that we could unpack, but I think it's such a timely topic to talk about, and there's so much great work happening both here and in the region.
Sounds like quite a comprehensive approach, which is very exciting. Hilary, do you want to weigh in?
Absolutely. And like Kathy said, there is a lot of meat on this bone. I mean, Fred Hutch has actually embedded DEI and education in the strategic plan. So it is a stated priority that we lean into quite heavily at Fred Hutch. And we have a number of educational programs that have been running for, almost 30 years at this point, but we continue to expand the programs in order to increase the access and understanding of what a career scientist could look like, because it has so many different flavors. We have a program called Hutch Advanced, which is sort of designed to match students in their interest with what the workforce needs. And that workforce isn't just strictly limited to the lab. I mean, there are hundreds of jobs that make the Fred Hutch, work, and not all of them are sitting in the lab. So, you're exposing students to what it looks like, to work in government relations to support science, or work in philanthropy to support science. We have an entire program, kind of to train people around the adjacencies of a lab-based innovation kind of program. We also have teacher trainings. So we try to bring in local teachers to give them curriculums that they can take back out into their classrooms and educate young people, Kathy, also to your point, early in their educational journey, that this isn't, that the science is accessible, and that the teachers know how to engage with students to make them want to continue in the STEM fields. That's very important. And we also partner with, places like Shoreline Community College to partner and create, what is basically, applied biotechnology courses to teach people at the Shoreline Community College how to be a technician. Because I think when I believe when when people think about science, they think it's something that you have to be, really, really smart and good and, committed to being a scientist, when really it is such an accessible career track and a very, very, stable, well-paying kind of position to move into. It just takes, an education to move in that direction. And it's, I think that's a large part of Fred Hutch's mentality and commitment, is to make people understand that science is accessible, and provide them the tools and the programs to just give them that confidence and assurance that that they can move in that, anybody can move in that direction.
Well, it sounds like a very holistic approach, making me wish that I was back in school again.
There are a lot of options, I'll tell you. When I talk to my
Yeah, I was a big
my-
science nerd back in the day, so.
Yeah, I talked to our education coordinator last week about this, and just to get a better sense of it. And I swear I almost signed my children up to like half of the programs that they're offering. Really? Great.
Well, Alison, would you like to weigh in?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah. And I loved Kathy's comments about how much meat there is on the bone here, and how Hilary picked that up into her comments about all the great work that the Fred Hutch is doing in this space. And we've had a little bit of opportunity to engage with the Fred Hutch on some programs, including their Exploring Industry Careers. And it's really neat to see how intentional the Hutch is about exposing folks in their educational system to careers beyond the bench, if you will, all these sort of like ecosystem jobs, related jobs that people can do with those degrees. For BMS's part, there's two initiatives that I'd love to highlight and the ways they're impacting DEI. I think one in the ways that we're working together to make opportunities in the life sciences more accessible to underrepresented communities. We're incredibly fortunate in the state of Washington and with BMS to have been partnering with Washington State Opportunity Scholarship since 2019. So I thought I might just introduce that for folks who aren't familiar. It's a unique public-private partnership, the only one in the nation, where scholarships are matched with the state of Washington and organizations in the state. Because the program has a kind of lens towards and a focus towards students who are the first in their families to attend post-secondary education, the diversity of their scholars actually matches pretty closely that of the state of Washington itself. So, for example, 65% of the scholars are students of color, 54% are women and are non-binary. So BMS Washington has sponsored close to 70 scholars in that space, and we've been had the pleasure of engaging with these bright young minds in multiple ways, through including panels with the students, kind of talking, because these are baccalaureate or technical scholars, kind of that early careers experience with some of our young scientists, then bringing them on site for tours, and then bringing internal awareness in BMS to opportunities to volunteer as industry mentors, which is a really key part of this program. And something that I particularly love about Washington State Opportunity Scholarship, that they're really intentional about making sure the students have a lot of exposure to industry jobs and to industry career staff. So and then we're planning also to expand this to internships in the coming years. So we're really excited about that. And then within our organization, I wanted to highlight our people and business resource groups. These are 8 organizations, each of which is kind of focused on a distinct dimension of diversity and designed to harness the business insights and experience of our global workforce. So the PBRGs lead on-site activities, but for employee growth, but they also are really empowered to lead efforts to drive positive change in our communities. So as an example, I wanted to highlight our BMS Black Organization for Leadership and Development, which is called BOLD. The PBRG helped reshape BMS's clinical trial design and processes. So they kind of rethought the entire infrastructure to remove barriers to participation in clinical trials, including along factors like education, awareness, trust in staff, which is so key, and socioeconomic factors, such as the inability to travel to trial sites. And then one early result that we've seen kind of quantified is that they were able to increase enrollment from among Black patients in a clinical trial for prostate cancer from 4% to 18%. So we can see tangible results when we kind of, align along these dimensions of diversity. And it's really exciting to see what else we might be able to do in the future.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. I know was a lot of meat on that bone, and I'm sure we could continue talking about this for the rest of our time together. But I did want to shift gears here to just talk about how you see the relationship between the life sciences industry and the broader business community evolving. Are there opportunities for increased collaboration and support between your organization and other sectors in Seattle? I know we talked about technology already a little bit. So, Hilary, do you want to kick us off for this question?
Yeah, okay, I'll happy to do that, and I'll actually weave in the last question because one of the programs that we support at Fred Hutch is an internship program for students at historically Black colleges and universities, to bring them to Seattle to to give them lab internships and experience in the laboratory setting. That's actually sponsored by Costco. So we have corporate partners that we're reaching out to help support the initiatives writ large at Fred Hutch, including education and beyond. Obviously, the technology partnerships that we've forged are very important, particularly as as we've already discussed, AI and data mining become more important. But I would also see a lot of opportunity in working with large scale corporate enterprises that have logistical the logistics of just doing business and supply chain and scale, kind of down to a T, looking at the aerospace engineering and industries and thinking about how do they look at improvement, how do they look at lean operations, how do they look at taking a system view of their organization and identifying spaces and places where we can drive efficiency and drive improvement. I think the hospital systems, research systems are very complicated beasts, to manage and to operate. So what can we learn from, a Boeing or similar to sort of bring their improvement practices and their thinking about a system level view into Fred Hutch and into our clinics. So I think those are all, opportunities to just improve the operating system as a whole, looking to corporate partners who could help us think about it.
Really exciting. Allison, would you like to go next?
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'd love to. And I just want to say what a neat perspective Hilary had there. Was so thoughtful to look at local partners to see about how we can sort of learn from each other in similar areas of sort of pain points, like we saw in the supply chain realm, right? Like how do they solve for those solutions, but also, just that new perspective, that fresh perspective and that fresh pair of eyes as well that we can share across industries. A really neat perspective. I'm going to focus my response just a little bit more on our engagement with the local mayor's office. I thought that might be a kind of fun perspective to share here. So, in collaboration with the deputy mayor's team and Life Science Washington and BMS, we actually created a proclamation to designate April 18th, 2024 as Life Science Innovation Day during the Life Science Innovation Northwest Conference. This proclamation highlights the significance of life sciences in Seattle, as I kind of touched on in my opening remarks. I think it's a really nice way to kind of expand our collaboration with local politicians, and then also with our our chambers like the Seattle Metro Chamber and and sort of bring awareness and engagement across the business community at a sort of at a high level, and including sharing common goals around diversity. So
Thank you. And Allison.
Kathy, maybe
Or
we're
Kathy, my apologies.
oh, no worries.
Keep talking, Alison.
I
wrote that
can, but I
down.
would love to give Kathy a chance.
Yeah, both such great points have been made, both on lessons that we can have from the vast expertise of the other organizations and businesses in the region. One that comes to mind in addition to the options already noted here is something that I think is facing a lot of biology despite the amazing impact that's been had. It's some of the efforts is how do we make some of these self-sustainable? When we're talking about large access to databases that can help everybody and some of these resources, there are some costs to be had. So how do businesses look at that? How can we learn from some of their lessons as in regards to self-sustainability? Because that is something that we think of when there's immense embracing of open science. It's hard to necessarily correlate that to free science because there is a cost for cloud compute. There is a cost for other things, and really how can we have the most impact and still be able to do that and fulfill all the aspirations that we have to make biology have the revolution that it could, both at the bedside and just across in any number of fields. And so that's something that again I think could go into any number of sectors to get insights and value there. And I will just go back into shared workforce. I mean, we're all looking, I think, for people with very similar skill sets and whether they train here and then where do they go on from there. But this region is just a mecca for expertise and approaches. And I think that's something that also leaning really into and looking for collaborations or looking for sponsorships or programs or sabbaticals or any number of mechanisms to really lean into that. Because again, it's just amazing what is in our own backyard and eager to see where we can have those synergies.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for this rich discussion today. I feel like I just took a master class on the life science industry in our region, and I'm really impressed with the forward-thinking, innovative approaches all of you are taking in this industry, from how to use AI to improve data sets and cell therapies, to engaging in holistic and expansive DEI initiatives, focusing on growing the local life sciences workforce, and all the ways that you are thinking about partnerships with tech and local governments and other sectors in the region. So thank you all for a great conversation, and thanks to those who have joined us online as well. I think this conversation will resonate with many of our listeners because it highlights how major life sciences organizations are making a difference in our community. Even if we're not directly involved in this field, understanding these advancements helps us appreciate their impact on our future. Another thank you to our panelists, Alison Fitch with the Alison Institute, Bristol Myers Squibb, and Hilary Hehman with Fred Hutchinson Cancer Center, and Kathy Richmond with the Allen Institute. I had a typo in my script there. I encourage everyone to stay engaged along with the ongoing developments in life sciences and support the incredible work being done in our region. We'll see you next time.